Good morning, it's Wednesday, November the 11th, Remembrance Day, and welcome to the Deadline Press and Picture Agency roundup of the top stories in today's Scottish newspapers. I'm Oliver Farrimond.
And I'm Rory Reynolds. Let's start with the Telegraph.
On the front page of the Telegraph, there's two main stories. The first, backpedaling on MPs' expenses. The two major public figures in charge of the expenses reform, Professor Sir Ian Kennedy and Sir Christopher Kelly, appear at odds as Sir Christopher Kelly's recommendations, they look in doubt in terms of whether they're going to be implemented fully. The other story on the front page of the Telegraph, the father who can't be named for legal reasons of baby RB, who can't move his muscles or breathe without assistance, has given up his fight, and the baby will now be allowed to die.
Mr. Justice McFarlane at the High Court expressed his profound admiration for the parents' dedication to their young son.
On the front page of The Sun, the only newspaper to run this story on their front page today, Alex Salmond's hospitality register has revealed that he treated his dentist to a slap-up meal and also tickets to a concert. The remainder of the story on page 2 has the capped-up crosshead disgrace, which is a rare sight, and the First Minister's dentists said that just Alex is an affable chap, and the First Minister's spokesman said that it was normal practice. And on page 12 of The Sun, the damaging feud between STV and ITV continues, as on Monday night ITV screened Collision starring Scots actor Dougie Henshaw. 7.5 million people watched that, whereas up north of the border, only 250,000 watched Greatest Scot, which was screened instead. This follows controversy earlier in the year, as on Sunday nights STV chose to screen old James Bond films instead of the drama Doc Martin, which starred Martin Clunes.
And on page 22 of The Sun, the firefighter Ewan Williamson, who died trying to rescue 20 people in a pub blaze in Edinburgh, has been nominated by the Chancellor, Alistair Darling, for the Queen's Gallantry Medal. Mr. Darling said that he should be properly honoured for his bravery.
35-year-old Ewan Williamson died in July when the floor collapsed beneath him as he rescued more than 20 people from a blaze in a pub in Dalry in July. The Mirror have devoted 5 pages to yesterday's lottery winners, pages 1, 4, 5, 6 and 7. The front page is devoted to Les Scadding from Wales, who won £45.5 million. 5 years ago he beat cancer and he's spent his money on a massive yacht. The spreads inside the paper reveal that the syndicate of call centre workers in Liverpool feared that they would be made redundant, but were told when they came into work that they had won £45 million between them.
On page 6 and 7, they've highlighted how Les was £68 overdrawn from his account and drove an old Citroen, but now they've said he's rolling in it.
The Scottish Daily Mail have devoted their front page to the couple who lost their fight to allow their child to live. But inside, on page 17, renowned bacteriologist Professor Hugh Pennington has warned that cutbacks in local authorities could mean another outbreak of E. coli, the same as which killed 21 people in Wales a few years ago. He fears that the annual 80,000 food inspections that occur in local authorities will suffer as a result of cuts to council budgets.
The well-known Aberdeen University professor has warned that such an outbreak would leave Britain's food supply on a knife edge.
Moving on to the Times, on pages 6 and 7, they've got a very eye-catching spread of the supermarket price war to come. Reportedly, Asda, Tesco, Morrisons and Sainsbury's are at full strength for the first time in a long time, and they're battling for shoppers who might normally go to Woolworths and Zavvi, which of course went into administration. It's a very attractive visual layout they've got here. They've got Sainsbury's, Morrisons, Tesco and Asda dressed up as medieval knights, where it sort of outlines the strings to their bow and what their main weapons are. It's entertaining stuff.
The Times have made the Sainsbury's knight not very well armed at all. He has a flag in one hand and a shield in other, and some sort of light chainmail, whereas the Morrisons knight here is in full heavy armour, and the Asda knight has a full cavalry armour on as well. So Sainsbury's knight not standing much of a chance there.
Let's hope this is just artistic licence.
Daily Star of Scotland splashing the X Factor story today that Simon Cowell has gagged Jedward from speaking to the press, or any other contestants for that matter. But moving on to page 11, a surprising story that former Ramsay Nesbitt actress Elaine C. Smith is the highest paid panto star in Scotland. She's paid £20,000 a week to play a fairy godmother in Cinderella in the Aberdeen run of the show. And on page 20 of the Daily Star today, this is a story about Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. And this is in almost all of the papers today, saying how the game, which is said to be quite brutal, has been flying off the shelves. The Daily Star have called it a suicide bomb game. And there's also been a bit of a price war in the supermarket as to who can sell it the cheapest.
There's been some controversy over the content of the game, where reportedly players can choose whether to take part in a massacre of civilians while posing as an undercover CIA agent. MP Keith Vaz has led the charge on this, but Labour MP Tom Watson, who you might know as the first MP to start his own blog back in 2003, has started a group on Facebook giving video gamers a platform for a medium which they feel and he feels is misunderstood.
A racist killer celebrated as he stabbed a young naval officer in the throat. That's the front page of the Daily Record today. Christopher Miller, who slashed the throat of Kunal Mohanty, a 30-year-old naval officer, has been sentenced to 18 years in prison. Friends of the Indian officer told how he slashed their friend in the throat and then ran off into the dark, punching the air with delight. And a slightly lighter-hearted story on page 21. French people are the rudest in Europe, according to the Daily Record. 3/4 of the 3,000 holidaymakers polled said that French people had been rude to them, and 10% described the locals in France as miserable. Scottish schools are struck in a spiral of decline. That's the front page of the Scotsman today. A leading professor of education, Eric Wilkinson from the University of Glasgow, has said that the SNP government has ignored fresh thinking on ways to educate Scotland's children.
Elsewhere in the Times, Magnus Linklater has written a leader saying that the SNP should certainly pay close attention to the actions taken by the SNP-led council in East Lothian at the moment.
On page 5 of the Scotsman, the news that 5 patients have died at Nine Wells Hospital in Dundee. Their deaths have been linked to C. difficile, and NHS Tayside have confirmed that 8 elderly patients have been struck with the infection as well. Opposition in the Scottish Parliament yesterday said that the government are failing to tackle the causes of outbreaks like this. But the Health Secretary, Nicola Sturgeon, said measures have been introduced to reduce the number of cases of C. difficile. On the front page of the Herald today, the news that Lloyds are to slash 1,000 jobs at their branches in Scotland. That's 1/5 of their entire workforce up here. This is 3,000 altogether across the UK, and there's pressure mounting for the Scottish Government to try and secure jobs in the finance sector. Obviously this year they've already taken quite a battering, with a lot of Royal Bank of Scotland employees losing their jobs up here.
Finance Secretary John Swinney has reportedly held talks with Lloyd's Executive Director for Scotland, which is Archie Kane, about helping those who will suffer as a result of the layoffs.
One of the main stories in the Herald today, One of the main stories on the Herald today is on the front page, but a link to page 5 as well. This exposes the salaries of top-level BBC employees. And they've said the top executive may earn up to £220,000 a year. And they have a breakdown with a picture of each of the top executives, head of talent, head of news and current affairs. And they've noted here that several of them earn more than the Prime Minister, who earns £194,000 a year. And they've also mentioned that their counterpart at STV, with the Chief Executive, Rob Woodward, earning £300,000 a year, while the Chief Executive of Channel 4 earns £600,000 a year.
That's what's making the headlines in today's Scottish papers. I'm Oliver Faramond.
And I'm Rory Reynolds.
And enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll see you tomorrow morning.